Okay, YouTubers, this is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Now today I'm doing a talk through of the top finds from 2021 from the Perseverance and Curiosity Rover images. Okay, we start off with Perseverance here from last year, and this isn't all the things that I found. There are a few finds here from other people as well, and this is just the highlights of last year. There were a lot more things found by myself and other people. And I often show other people's finds as well. About 5% of my stuff on here is probably from other people, other researchers that have put stuff on my group on Facebook called ArtAlienTV Magazine. If you're not a member of that, come along, it's free to join. What I'm going to do, I'm going to stop and pause some of these and talk you through some of them. And this is really for people that haven't seen my channel before. I know a lot of you would have seen a lot of these as I brought them out over the course of last year. But this is really for people that are uninitiated in the details of what's on the ground on Mars, okay? And I'm just going to briefly explain what some of these things are. Here we have, in the background, the thing I call the bunker-shaped structure. This is huge. This thing is absolutely huge. It's about a mile away from the rover. And you can see it looks like a sort of rectangular shape from this side. It's not rectangular. In fact, it's sort of an angled shape. It looks a bit like a Tetris-shaped object from above. And I have done videos on this, showing it from the MRO and satellite images from space. So if you want to check that out, it's well worth looking at because it's a very large structure that looks like a destroyed ziggurat or something along those lines, perhaps. It may not be, but it certainly looks artificial. And some of the things I've shown on it are artificial. There are huge statues and things around it, around the edges here. So does that mean the whole thing's artificial? No, but it does have artificial aspects to it, okay? You can see here, this has an eye, just here, with a white part around the outside and a darker part in the middle. So it's got an iris here, with a nose and a mouth, a strange ear sticking up. This to me looks like some kind of toy that's melted. It's got a ridge along the back with nodules on it like a spine. And it's a very funny shape. It looks like a toy, like perhaps a plastic toy. It may be an actual carving, I don't know. It looks like rock, but everything tends to look like rock, especially when you have everything covered in dust and sand, okay? That's the general rule on Mars. Everything is covered in this fine layer of dust, and even metal or potentially plastic objects will look like rock because of the texturing of the material over these objects, okay? So who knows what that is? It could be a toy, it could be a carving, who knows, but it's very, very strange. This is what I call the Citadel, and in fact, I called this the Citadel before NASA decided to call it the Citadel, and in this video it actually confirms that, and you can see that this is a structure. It's quite a large structure. It's about 50 or 60 feet across. What we're seeing here is the lower floors of the structure that are still showing the floor here, and it's all kind of broken down, and there are probably layers of this underground as well, buried in this sand, which in most of these areas is probably up to between 10 and 25 feet deep, possibly more in some areas. A lot of this sand drifts around and is constantly moving in the Jezero crater, much like in Gale crater, and the sand will cover things up and then it will blow away and uncover periodically, okay? So this is well worth watching, this one. It's very revealing, and I do show this stuff from space as well in the satellite images, okay? This can be seen from space, and you can see a rectangular shaped structure showing above the sand, and you can see lots of stuff just below the sand from space, okay? There's also this clip here showing this part of the building, which was probably a pillar or a column, and we have perfectly cut stonework here, stone masonry, fitted, okay? These are not random. This here is perfectly cut. You can see these straight edges along here. Just here. Perfectly cut. This is not just a random rock. These are fitted masonry blocks. Then we have this nearby. This here is a doorway, and this is part of another building, another dilapidated, buried building, and this here is part of a wall structure which would have been next to the door here. You can actually see the gap here. Now, this doesn't really tell you the whole picture, because to the left of here there are also loads of fitted blocks. These walls were backed with concrete. You can actually see that these are fitted rocks, roughly fitted together, and then joined at the back here, interlocking. You can see them interlocking each other here, quite complex. So they've been fitted together and would have had mortar or something joining them here, which is now eroded away. You can still see a bit of it down here. Okay, so this is fitted work. It's quite crude, some of it. Some of it's much more advanced and cut straight, but a lot of the stonework they were using in Jezero crater was quite rough hewn rock, put together and then stuck together. Then we have this, one of my favourite finds. This actually looks better from a bit further back, actually. So I'm going to do this, because when you get too close to some of these things, they're a bit hard to focus on. But you can see here that this is what looks like a dragon or some kind of carving of an animal, a reptilian type creature like a dragon or reptile, with what looks like a bone or object in its mouth. This is one of the best finds. I didn't find this one myself. This was found, I think, by Rami or someone else, Rami Barilan perhaps, and he posted it on his group first. So not one of my finds, but one of the best finds of 2021. Okay, let's go back to the larger size. You can see the eye here, you can see the mouth, and you can see the object in the mouth there. Now this is the left and right view of this. Okay, yes, and it was found by Rami Barilan on the 27th of August. In the summer last year. Okay, a brilliant find, and you can see the eye socket there, and there's even eye detail in the eye socket, which is astonishing, absolutely astonishing. So the level of their artwork was quite high end in many cases. Some of it's quite crude, and a lot of it's eroded and broken, but this one's relatively intact, and you can see the eye just there, and the mouth, with the object in the mouth. This thing here is a rock behind it, so this object comes to about here, and it's cylindrical in shape. Okay, let's look at the one on the right. You can see it there, this object. Now this, I did pontificate in this video when I did it, that this may have had something hanging from it, like an object hanging from this. This may be a handle, or it may represent a bone, don't know. A lot of people thought it looked like a bone, but it's impossible to say either way. You can see the eye detail in there. You can actually see an iris and an eye quite clearly, and some nose detail with nostrils, it seems, either side here. So this is a carved animal, and it seems to have, when you look at the actual video, it's joined to this rock behind, which looks like it's in the shape of two kind of dragon wings, as if the dragon was not in a flying position, but in a crouched position with the wings folded. Okay, very interesting. So that's well worth looking at that one. And there are also loads and loads nearby that. There's loads and loads of strange objects like this. This thing has got writing on it, just here. If I show you with a magnifier, you can see that there's these sort of triangular and sort of symmetrical shapes in here. This is carved. We've got this strange object on the side of it here as well, and a very strange animalistic looking, almost hedgehog looking face here. I don't know if it does represent an animal, but it's got some strange lettering on it, and you can even see the lettering on the rule clip here, just here. Like an emblem or set of letters and shapes, okay? Just here. So there we have it. Some interesting stuff. And one of the few examples of glyphs in Jezero crater so far. Then there was this. This is a double-headed kind of rock. Got a head here and another one here. And you can actually see the mouth detail, nose detail, and two eyes there. I'm just going to use this to point those out for you. We've got an eye here, another one here. We've got the chin here and a mouth here. and you can see a nose there, okay? And the head comes up to here. Some of these things aren't very clear. This was quite a long way off from the rover, over 50 feet away, and the problem is, as I've said 100 times before in my videos, that the camera isn't zooming into these things. It takes general kind of landscape photos, which are then all stitched together, and when you zoom into something that's not near the front of the landscape set of images, it can look quite blurry because it's quite a long way away. So you get these kind of blurry edges, but you can see what these things are, and you can see the two eye sockets on this one here, and the nose, and a smiling mouth, and a sort of jaw coming around here, and the head comes up here, forehead there, coming back like that. Okay, eye detail's a bit different there, and you've got a sort of cheekbone sticking out there. So we've got two heads together. What are the chances of that? Now the chances of that being done by nature or by random erosion, I would say is 0, okay? Absolute 0. So there we have it. So, and there are lots of these in the area. Sometimes they're double ones, sometimes there's triple ones. And there is also this thing here. This is very odd. Unfortunately, we've got this dune of sand just in front of this object. We can see what looks like a figurine or something here of a person with a head there and an arm sticking up. It's very strange. And a strange object behind it. And we never got to see this in its full glory, this thing, because it was obscured and the rover didn't go up to it, unfortunately. So we're only seeing the top part of this thing, okay? We got the raw version down here and here. You can see what looks like a head here with eyes and a mouth, even an ear sticking out, just here. And a weird sort of arm or something sticking up. Very strange. Now, it may not represent a person, it may represent something else, I don't know. And there's a very strange object next to it as well, behind it here. And a lot of this stuff looks like fitted stonework. And you can see how some of it's cracked here. There's a very strange thing behind this. This was a really weird one. And this may just be a random rock, but it seems to represent some kind of carving of a I would say an entity or person or whatever you want to call it. And we've got a head here in a long point at the top. We've got eyes, we've got a mouth and a nose and a body. This, I think, represents the head. A nose and a mouth. There's an eye there and an eye there, just above, okay. And we have a body. There's the groin area. Arm. And a leg coming down. Other leg coming down to here and foot. And an eroded remains of this arm here coming into here. Like this. And we got some belly detail here. There's something going on, some weird details in there. Very strange, but it's so eroded, this thing. And it's got this weird other head on top. Here. With a nose here and a mouth here. And a chin coming round. An eye here. There's the nose. Very strange indeed. It's almost like a totem. So this may represent some kind of deity or something, a bit like Bez, like you have in Egypt. Bez, the sort of little hybrid sort of dwarf lion demigod. It looks like a cross between a bear and a lion or something with a human body. Very, very strange stuff. I think they have very similar things on Mars. And I've found lots of things like this. And they're quite difficult to spot, some of them, because they're very eroded. But this one's almost intact. But it's very eroded and worn down. And maybe a million years old, we don't know. So there we are. Lots of these things in Jezero as well as in Gale Crater, and the Gale Crater ones will be coming up soon. Now this is one of the best skulls I've found so far. This was quite close to the rover, or at least the rover camera zoomed in quite a long way, and we can actually see the shape of it really well, and it really does match up this depiction of a reptoid. Now a reptoid isn't the same as a reptilian. A reptoid is basically an upright walking dinosaur. And some scientists believe that before the dinosaurs were magically all wiped out at the same time, most of them, they were around so long they actually evolved into sort of humanoid shaped beings. In other words, 2 legs, 2 arms, large brains, large eyes with binocular vision, and grew quite tall, maybe 4 to 5 feet, okay? And would have walked around just like people. This may be one on Mars. You can actually see the skull here. This one here on Mars, the eye socket you can see here is quite a lot smaller than this would be on this one. This is one that may have existed on Earth millions of years ago. And the eyes are much bigger, but this one on Mars has got smaller eyes. But apart from that, the morphology, there's the eye socket. It's ovoid, just there. There's even some eye detail in it. So this is kind of mummified and still has some fleshy material attached to it, okay? But the actual shape of this thing is almost identical. And it's about the same size. A Reptoid skull on Mars. And not the only one, I've found many others like this. This is actually fossilized. And you can see, with this one, you can actually see there's an eye there. There's an eye socket there. There's nasal cavities just here, one here and one here. And we have a mouth with piranha-like teeth and a small chin coming to a point here. Okay? I'll just point that out to you again because this is crazy. Let's get rid of that. Absolutely crazy. And this is very large. This is about 2 feet plus from the chin to the top here. Very large. Maybe 2.5, 3 feet. But it's around 2 to 3. We've got an eye here. We've got an eye socket here. Not much detail in there. Nasal cavities. This is a reptoid or reptilian. I would call it a reptoid. Extremely large, elongated skull. Very large indeed. Here's the chin coming back. Cheekbone comes in like this. And the jaw below. And as I said, we've got a mouth here with very sharp piranha-like teeth. Now, this may have been some kind of aquatic creature. I don't know. It may have been a land creature walking around. I don't know. It could have had 4 legs. It could have had two legs and 2 arms. I don't know. But one thing is for sure, this thing was very large because this skull is huge. And I estimate that the brain capacity of this thing would be something compared with a dolphin-sized brain on Earth. Very large indeed. And possibly highly intelligent. I don't know for sure, but it's very large. Okay? So there we are. A reptoid or reptilian skull. And it's very large indeed. Okay? And quite scary looking. Here's a close-up. You can see those teeth quite clearly. Once you see the teeth, the rest of it makes sense. Okay? And there's a close-up there of the teeth. You can see them quite clearly, even in the raw clip here. Very interesting. There's this. This is some kind of carving. We have a rock with a circular head-shaped part that's joined to it. And you can even see what look like eyes and a possible mouth here at the bottom. It's very crude, it's very eroded and probably broken, but you don't get perfectly round rocks like this attached to random rocks. I mean, you just don't in nature. And here's the negative of it. You can see how round this thing is. And you can actually see an eye socket there, one there, and a nose and a mouth here. It's pretty vague, this one, not one of the clearest, so I'm not going to dwell on that too long. Some of these were really clear, some of these were a long way off, and some of them were quite small. This one I think is a carved animal with a head, the nose at this end and a mouth, an eye here and an ear kind of flopped back like this. Now I don't know whether it represents a dog or some other kind of animal, but I have found other ones that look a bit like cats and dogs and other similar creatures in this area. So you can see it there. There's the raw clip. You can even see it quite clearly there. You can see the eye. Let's look at that with a magnifier. Just here, that's the eye. This is the mouth with a chin here and a pointed nose coming out. And you can see the ear coming back here. Don't know what it represents. Some kind of animal, it seems. Now, this is one of the many carved animals I found. This is also quite a long way off, over 50 feet from the Rover, and quite small, only about a foot or so in length, maybe a foot and a half, or even 2 feet, but it's impossible to say. There's no size reference for this, and it's quite a long way off. It may be as much as 100 feet away, which is why it's quite vague. You can see 2 eyes and a nose, and it looks a bit like a hyena, or something along that kind of shaped animal, okay? And it's crouching or sat down with a head looking towards us, 2 eyes and a nose there. It's not very clear, even with the magnifier, you can't see much detail, but there's an eye, and there's the other eye, and there's the nose area, and the head coming back, okay? Is it possible it's a living creature? No, not really. One thing we would have seen if there were living creatures in these areas would be footprints, and we really just don't see them. In fact, in about 10 years plus now, more than 10 years showing these images, only a few footprints have ever been found by me and all the other researchers, and they're fossilized. They're not fresh, okay? So, if there are things living in this area, either in Jezero or in Gale Crater, then they're hiding themselves pretty well. Although there do seem to be a few birds flying around, okay? Here's another strange carved object of a head with a chin and a beard, and you can see the beard, the dark bit here. This looks very much like the emperor that I showed the carving of on Mount Sharp in Gale Crater, which is 2,300 miles from here, south of here, okay? And this is very strange, and there's not much detail to be seen. This is also quite a long way off, unfortunately, but seems to represent the same person with the sort of pointy or sort of goatee beard sticking down, okay? And we've got the eye and the nose. It's really quite vague. It's a long way off, so not much detail there, unfortunately. A lot of these things are a long way off, but some of them, as you'll see in a minute, are quite close, like this one. If things are a reasonable size and they're less than 25 feet away, then they tend to show up quite clearly like this. This is a fossilized animal, and you can see the mouth here, the eye here, and the nose coming down here. This is the nose and the snout there, back of the head. The mouth is what grabbed my attention. I mean, this may be an optical trick, but it looks like a fossilized head of some kind of possible dinosaur or some other creature, I don't know what. Similar to what I would compare it to would be something like a rhino, but without the horn at the front here. So imagine a rhino without a horn, or the horns removed here. Imagine there being a horn there, and there we have it. It's that kind of shape, I would say. Some of these things aren't very obvious, and one of my favourite finds, which was quite early on, I found this early on when I started doing the Jezero crater study, was this head here. And this is a human head, and is very large. It's over 2 feet high. Now, that's way more than double the size or height of a human head, so it's probably... I estimate this to be around sort of 20 inches plus, okay? So the brain capacity on this person would have been phenomenal. 4 or 6 times the size of a human brain, possibly even much bigger. Here it is. You can see the raw clip here, and you can see the enhanced clip here. And you can see all those details, the eyes, the nose with flared nostrils, strange mouth configuration. Now, whether this is fossilized or an actual carving, I don't know. We're not close enough. The only reason we're seeing this in any real detail is because it's big, not because it's close. It's quite a way off. But you can see the facial details here. If I use the magnifier, you can see an eye here, another one here, nostrils here and here. There's the mouth. Contorted looking, as if this was mummified rather than an actual carving or depiction. when you have contorted features like this, it usually means that this is an actual specimen that's dried out and shriveled, and the mouth details tend to get contorted and can look quite grotesque like that, okay? And we've even got an ear just there. This is huge, way bigger than the human skull, more than double the height and double the depth and everything. So it's, if you could fit, in this image, you could fit probably 4 human skulls here. 1, 2, 3, and 4, okay? Very, very intriguing. Very intriguing, and there's probably a body buried just in the sand below. Now, this is one of the structures in Jezero crater that's built into a mound, and we can see here, it's very vague, the actual raw image I've got here at the top. It just looks like a large mound of sand and rocks. But then if you look carefully, you can see this cutout area here, just here, and it's rectangular. There's a rectangular structure built into this mound. And in fact, there are multiple structures around it. Now, this is over a mile away from the rover. It's about 1.5 miles away, possibly 2, and is huge. This, I would say, is about 100 feet by about 500 feet long or something like that. I'm not sure exactly. It could be much bigger. I don't know the exact size. It's very large. And we've got a structure here. We've got one here. We've got them in front. We've got one here. We've got one here, one here. And there's a row of them round the edge and some round the back that go right round this. Very, very strange. And in negative, it really shows up. And that's a trick I always use when looking at things a long way off. You have to flip it to negative and then crank the contrast, and the shapes will come out. Because these sandy, vague, misty pictures aren't great, but you can see those things there. You just have to flip it to negative and then push the contrast, and that's what you see. A very large mound or dome-shaped structure in the distance with a rectangular part and multiple buildings around it. Unfortunately, it's a long way off, but we may get more images of this and get close-ups of it at some point if the rover moves towards it or happens to zoom in. Okay, then we have this. Now, this is a curiosity find here. Okay, the one in the middle, that's from Gale Crater, and is what looks like a fossilized insect of some sort with wings, or what were wings here. Okay, this is the head, I think. I'll show you with the magnifier. There it is. Very strange indeed. You've got these protrusions either side like wings and what seem to be limbs below that. And this is the abdomen with a possible sting on the back here. That's the abdomen, and this is, I think, is the head. And this is the thorax area with the wings coming out either side, okay? And this here is another carving of a head here. But what's interesting about this one is there is in fact a hand here. There's an animal carving here of a bird or something there, right? Like that. And this is an actual carving of a person with afro hair. This is the hair up here. There's the nose, there's the mouth, and the eyes, okay? And you can actually see some of the details better in the one on the right. Let me get rid of this. You can see some of those details better on the right and some better on the left, okay? Mars Afro statue, very strange insect thing here in the middle. But I'll show you that from Gale Crater in a minute when we come to the Gale Crater images coming up soon. We're about almost halfway. The second half is all the Gale Crater stuff. First half is all the Jezero, okay? But in some videos, I tend to do a bit of both, like we've done here, okay? So there we are. There's the raw clips at the bottom. This is also quite a long way from the rover. Then we have this, another very large head, carved probably, but could be fossilized, I don't know. It's very hard to say. It's a bit of a way off, but it's very large, like that other large one I showed you. It's over 2 feet, I would say, around the 2 foot mark, possibly a bit less, a bit more, from the chin to the top here. And you can see an eye here, a little short nose, a mouth, and quite a large chin with some details in it like a beard or something. And then even there's an ear just here, it seems, with a hole there. Okay, and some interesting things in the head. This is, I think, probably more likely a carving because we have some interesting symbols on the top of it here, okay, which are a bit vague, but they're there. You can even see them in the raw one here. Okay, very large, this one. Sol 175, okay, interesting. There's lots of these. This was weird. Now, I don't know if this represents an animal or not. It's very strange and seems to have an arm here, but this may be an optical trick, but it does seem to have two eyes and a very strange sort of head sticking up. Very, very weird. I don't know what it represents, whether it's a bird or something else, but if you look carefully, there's a carving of a head right in front of it here, just here. You can see an eye here, another eye here, there's a nose and a mouth here, okay, just here. And then we have this weird thing with what seem to be two eyes and a chin coming down. I don't know whether it is a carving or representing some kind of figure or figurine, but this is quite large. This is over a foot high, I would say, about a foot and a half. Very strange. One of the early finds from February, one of the first things that was spotted back in February 2021. So, very, very strange. A lot of people spotted this and put it up online. Then we have this thing. This is the Ingenuity helicopter, close up. Incidentally, I did do quite a couple of videos on this thing. We've been told for many, many years that there wasn't enough air pressure on Mars for anything to fly. Because when I was posting videos of things like UFOs flying around on Mars, people kept saying, oh, there's no way anything could fly up there because there's not enough air pressure. Well, how the bloody hell does this thing fly then? I know it's got a much faster rotation speed and it's got very angled rotors and it's very light and there's not much gravity on Mars. It's only about 1/3 of ours. But according to them, the air pressure is less than 1% of ours, so it shouldn't fly, but it does, and it flies extremely well. So there's a lot more air pressure on Mars than they've been telling us, and I've been saying this for a while now, and this proved it. When we got this copter up there flying around, it proved what I've been saying for a long, long time, that there's much more air pressure, there's a lot more weather, there's a lot more cloud, because some images are very dark and some are very bright within minutes of each other. So there's passing clouds going over, and we do in fact have some images of those, which I'll be showing you. And then we have another, what seems to be some kind of weird creature here. You can see an eye there, and a snout with pointed teeth. Like a little crocodilian, weird little carving of some kind of creature, like a reptile, okay? Pretty cool. Then there was this. This is really weird. Now I call this Dracula or something. We have another carving. Now this time, this one was a bit hard to bring out. It's very pale, quite a long way off. But when you darken it, this is what you get. And you can see here, an ear, nose, mouth with teeth, eyebrows. And you can see all that, there's the eye. You can see all that a lot better in here, where it's much darker. If you really darken this up, you can see the stuff. But it's still a bit vague. And this, I think, is a cloak, a collar of a cloak. This here. And the collar or cloak comes right round the head, and this is the other side of it here that comes back here, okay? So maybe a nobleman or something with a very elaborate gown with large collars and a sort of cloaked collar coming round, or something like that. It may represent. Very interesting. I called this Batman or Dracula or something. I can't remember now. It should say now. Hopefully. Sol 153. Yeah, the Batman I called it, because it does look a bit like that, but it's not really. This isn't an ear sticking up. This is the back of the collar that goes round. Okay. You can see those teeth in there. See those teeth? Pointed teeth, a bit like Dracula. Very interesting. human-ish, I would say. Human-ish. Not completely human, I would say. Then we had this strange object in the background that looks like a wrecked car. It may be an optical trick with rocks forming these shapes in a funny sort of formation, but who's to say? I mean, I have shown other cars and vehicles that are wrecked on Mars, just sitting in the sand, okay? Now, this is a lovely shot. This was taken as the rover was dropped into place from above, this image here, when it landed, as it was dropped into place. Above it would have been the part of the descent stage with rockets on it, okay? Which slowed its descent down before it finally landed. And then a load of sand blew up from the ground. This is one of the first things I found. This looks like a carving or depiction of another helmet here. And we've even got sort of goggles and cheek guard here, cheek guards either side, helmet, okay? This was right by the rover, right where it landed, literally a few feet away in the sand, lying on the sand. Partly exposed by the actual blast radius from the rockets, the retro rockets that helped the rover land safely. It blew a lot of the sand away in the area, revealing this thing. So these are all over the place, and if we dug into this sand, which is quite deep in Jezero crater, we would find thousands of such things, I would imagine. This is from Gale crater, by the way. That's Ares, I've called him. Then we have this interesting set of structures here. This is what they call a butte on Mars. But in front of it was this thing, which is a very strange, almost Picasso-style, blue period, Picasso-style, carving of a person with quite a large nose, quite a small mouth, big eyes, and a funny shaped head and the shoulder and body coming back here. This is probably buried. Now this is a long way off, so it's very blurry, but it's definitely there. There's the raw clip, there's the enhanced clip. Here's another head. You can see the two eyes, little nose and a little mouth, and it's kind of mounted on a rock as well. This was interesting. This looks like some sort of representation of some kind of strange animal, which may be a marine mammal of some sort, or who knows. I'm just guessing. Very strange indeed. Sticking up out of this area here, in fact there's loads of weird things in this area. Sol 170. This is also Sol 170. Another large rock with a smaller rock stuck to the side of it with eyes and nose and a mouth here. You can see the two roundish eyes or oval eyes. Just here, one there and one there. Very crude, eroded nose and mouth detail there. And some interesting body details here with something depicted in it there. But very eroded, okay? There's the raw clip. I should have darkened this up more. This would actually stand out a lot more. I think in the video I did. So if you go through my videos from last year, you'll see this. Or you'll see the last image I showed on the cover probably, and then it does enhance them more and darkens them up more so you can see them better. And here's some of the other things found in that spot there. There's a carved head here, a strange object here which looks like a water jar. Another head here attached to a rock, like a figure here, but leaning over, okay? And then there was that one I just showed you. There's that weird, what looks like a marine mammal there, and there's another very strange, what look like carved rocks here, okay? Now we're on Sol 76. This looks like some kind of bear or dog type skull here. I don't think this is a carving. This looks actually like a fossilized skull with a large eye socket here and the snout still, some of the nose material still on it. So this is what I would say mummified rather than fossilized, okay? As I've said before 100 times, a lot of this sand contains a lot of sulfur and salts and bicarbonate minerals that are very good at preserving dead creatures and things of such like, okay? Extremely good, and these things mummify and probably last for a very, very long time, many thousands of years. It's very cold, it's very dry, and this stuff preserves these things extremely well, okay? So some of these things are many thousands of years old, possibly over 10 or 20,000 years old, or 50. Then there was this. I called it a cat initially, but then I thought actually it's more like a dog. My subscribers helped with this one. There it is, there's a closer up clip of it there, but maybe a dog. Either, take your pick. Pointed ears, two little eyes and a snout there. This is the belly, and you can see a foot there, a foot here, and a possible tail coming down the back. This is carved onto a large part of what seems to have been a wall here, the remains of a wall, and it was stuck on the side of a wall, which may have been just outside somebody's house. A lot of these piles of rocks in the area represent remains and ruins that are very buried in sand, okay? And occasionally we see parts of walls sticking out or above the sand with animals on them, okay? And this is such a thing. There are lots of them in the area. I've showed quite a few. I'm only showing the better ones here. I mean, there are lots more of these. So that may be a dog or a cat. I called it a cat initially, but when you see it from this angle, here, it looks more like a little dog. Now this is the left and right camera views of this, a bit closer up. You can see the ears sticking up, you can still see that eye, you can see the snout there. Unfortunately the rock behind it is slightly obscuring the detail there. You can see it. See the eye, snout, body, okay? And it's carved into this rock here. So that was really cool that we got to see that from about 3 or 4 angles, verifying that it's some kind of carved animal, either a cat or a dog or something of that size. This may be partly an optical trick, but when you have everything covered in this sand and they filter the images to remove all the green, in case there's any plants lying around, okay, they filter them so that everything looks the same colour. So it may well be. We've got an eye, a nose and an upper lip, mouth, chin coming down here, and head comes round like this. But this may be an optical trick. I'm not too sure about that one, but interesting either way. Then we have a dead animal. So there were animals on Mars, and some of them look quite fresh. This looks like some kind of marsupial, a bit like a wallaby or something. There's the head, 2 eyes and a nose, arm, foot, long foot, big, huge hindquarters here, and this is a foot. So it's like a little baby, like a small kangaroo or wallaby or something like that, I would say. Or it could be a very large rodent with powerful back limbs like this. Okay, so you can see it all there. I mean, like I said, these things preserve extremely well. This may be many, many thousands of years old, but it may only be 100 years old. It's impossible to say. Not enough detail, but you've got an arm, another arm. This is one of the feet, huge long foot there, and this is the thigh area and butt area. It's the shoulder and the head coming up there, and you can see those eyes and the snout there, in there. Okay, there's the snout. There we are. I mean, insane, right? But this could be 20,000 years old. It could be even 50,000 years old. The conditions are so good on Mars for preserving dead creatures. This could be extremely old, but it doesn't look it. It doesn't look it. If it was that old, I would expect a lot of this to be stripped away from wind erosion, like we see in Antarctica with a lot of the mummified seals and creatures there. The wind soon rips the flesh off these things, but it can take thousands of years if these things are sheltered. And when you're in quite a deep crater, these things can take an awful long time to erode, okay? Because the wind isn't that strong. The air pressure is higher than NASA say, but it's still not high enough to do a lot of damage very quickly like we have on Earth, okay? So this may be 1,000 years old, but it could be 100, or it could even be 5 or 10. Who knows? A dead animal. Who'd have thought you'd see something like that, honestly? And then there's this. This is one of the weirdest things so far and represents a type of creature that I know nothing of. You can actually see a nose here. See an eye here. And another one here. The snout comes right down. This is the maxilla. In other words, these are teeth here at the front, which look like they've eroded, but they come right back to here. We've got a row of teeth there. You can see the separate teeth. and where they sort of join to the maxilla like that, okay? So this had a long protruding maxilla or snout and jaw area, and the lower jaw would have been quite substantial and would have come to there like that. So this may represent some kind of baboon or some similar creature, who knows. The nose detail's interesting, we've got a nostril there. But a very large, elongated skull coming right back. And this is large, right? This is about 2 feet in length, maybe a bit longer. Really big. So whatever this was, it was some kind of giant ape or creature. I don't know what it was, but very interesting. So we're seeing a lot of species here that we know nothing about, but they do have some similarities. And the only thing I could find on Earth which had a similar shaped kind of maxilla here was I think a baboon. A very long jaw they've got, okay? Doesn't mean it is one, but that's all I can compare it to, really. Okay? That's all we can do. We can only compare these things to either other things we found on Mars or things we have on Earth. But my collection is now getting so large that I can compare a lot of these species with each other, with other Martian finds. And as you will see a bit later on, there are quite a few things a bit like this in Gale Crater as well. This is another carving here of a warrior, it seems. Helmet, the crest with a lock of hair or chain-like plaits coming down, and the remains of a shield here. Okay, this is a shoulder, other shoulder. It's pretty obvious what we're looking at. There are lots of views of this as well, and it's quite broken up, a lot more than it seems from this angle. A lot of this is quite damaged and broken up. But there's enough of it to see the helmet, and this part here looks like a plaited crest coming off the helmet. We've got a shiny part on top there, which I think is where the crest comes out of here, and then comes down the side. Then we have a shield here, the shoulder and the other shoulder, a warrior. So this is a warrior statue of probably not a human warrior either, possibly reptile or reptilian, who knows. But the facial features, if that's what they are, do not look human. Okay, that's for sure. There's not much facial detail there, but you could just about make out a mouth there and an eye here. Then there was this, a very strange carving of a person, just here. 2 distorted eyes and very strange nostrils, and a funny mouth and chin shape, next to another carving of some strange creature with a kind of hand with fingers coming down next to it. This is quite a long way from the Rover as well. One of the really early finds, February, literally not long after the Rover landed. It was taking all these huge kind of panoramics, and we were seeing all these weird heads and things and dead animals and the stuff in the sand, you know. A lot of it's buried, but a lot of it isn't. And a lot of these rocks in the area are parts of buildings, okay? Shattered and buried buildings. Very strange, some of this stuff. Really, really strange. But you can see those fingers there. Now, this is another giant ape, okay? This is more like a gorilla or that kind of, maybe not a gorilla, but maybe that kind of size skull. We got 2 eyes here. I should have darkened this a bit more. In the video, I do darken it more. You can see, there's an eye. You can see the whites of the eyes there. There's another one here. This is the brow ridge at the top. You can just about make out the snout here, and a mouth with teeth detail, and the chin there. So there's the chin. The head's been torn, and I do go into some detail on this in the video. The top of the head has been bitten off. Okay, we've even got gouges in the top of the head here, and you can see the orangey coloured possible brain material inside, where the top has just been bitten off. Okay. Very strange. Now, that may be partly an optical trick, but you can see that there's these jagged marks in here. And I think this, if this is, that is a big if this is a proto-human or ape skull, it's very large. This is also about 2 feet high plus. Okay, so it's much bigger than the human skull. But whatever bit the top of this off was even bigger and scarier than that. So that is an interesting thing to contemplate, okay? Because a creature that large would have to be attacked by something even bigger. Okay, so that's pretty scary if you think about it. Okay, but there were some pretty big scary creatures on Mars like there used to be on Earth. And a lot of these creatures, and even humanoids and reptoids, may have coexisted and fought each other and eaten each other, okay? In previous years where it looks like they've been half-eaten and parts of them have been bitten off, and there are teeth marks in some of them, there are even bullet holes in some of them where they've been shot. And a lot of the skulls have cranial damage as if they've either been hit over the head with an axe or a hammer. Some of them got bullet holes in. Some have had limbs torn off. So there were scavengers going around possibly after picking up parts of these corpses and dragging them off or tearing them apart. Okay, perhaps even when they were still alive. We don't know. A weird sort of carving of an animal there, not very clear, that one. Long way off. Quite large, it's about a foot high. There it is. Very strange. I don't really know what it represents, but it seems to represent something. There's that helmet that I showed you earlier, a close-up of it. And we got goggles, a very funny shape to it. They're quite pointed. And cheek guards coming down, okay? Very interesting. Not very big, only about 3 or 4 inches, very small. This is the actual, the part of the rover, okay? And this was underneath the rover, and this is what protected the actual copter drone, which we now see flying around on Mars without any difficulty at all, even though there's supposed to be less than 1% air pressure of Earth, right? But what I thought was interesting was this thing behind it. Very weird. Very weird. Looks like some kind of carving or something. May not be. Now here, as I said before, there's lots of remains on the ground. This is an actual person or Martian of some sort. And you can see the eyes, you can see the little nose there, and you can see mouth detail with jagged teeth there. This is the head, this is a shoulder and part of the arm and back here. And this goes right into the sand and along here. And you can see a ridge in the sand, so it's partially buried, or may have been obfuscated by the looks of it with sand, so that we can't recognise it. But you can actually see the eyes. I mean, this is astonishing. This is fossilized. They're initially mummified, and then it's probably so old that it's turned into a fossil. You've got an eye there with iris detail, another eye here. This is the nose, and we've got jagged mouth detail, which you tend to get in actual specimens and not in carvings, okay? Usually. That is a head. This is human size. This isn't that big. So probably a little bit larger than a human head, not much. Okay? You can see the mouth detail, you can see it all there. That is a fossilized corpse, or a mummified corpse that's then mineralized into a sort of fossil. Okay? Very interesting. There's lots of these in the area, but we rarely see them with body parts sticking out like this one. This is a carving. Here, 2 eyes, nose, mouth, okay? Top of it looks like it's snapped off here. Carved out of the same rock as the area, possibly attached to part of a wall. This may be part of a building just here, okay? This also looks a lot better, darker. If you darken it more, you can really see those mouth details and nose and eyes stick out even more, okay? Sol 64, that's an early one. This is one of my favourites. This is some kind of dog or similar type creature. Here's the snout. This is the left image. This is the right image. This is the raw image here from the right here. So you can see I've darkened it, but not a lot. 2 eyes, a pronounced snout, but not huge, with nostrils here. You can see the nostrils really clearly there and there. There's the eyes. And you can even see a bit of teeth detail there. Okay? And there's the body. This may have also been outside of a building and attached to the front wall by the entrance, like a lot of these things were, like we have on Earth. Often we have carved animals on the sort of walls either side of the entrance to nice buildings, okay? Or even your own house. And here's another one. Now this looks more like a cat that's been stripped of all its hair. Now I don't know whether this is carved or it's actually fossilized, I don't know. It's too far away. It's quite large, very bulbous eyes and a funny looking mouth area with a mouth here and a chin. And ignore this rock on the right here, that's behind, okay, it's not sticking out. This is the body and it's attached to this thing here and would probably also be, when you look at the area, there's a ridge right below it that looks like a wall buried, okay? So this is probably also attached to a wall that would have been outside somebody's house. If it is a carving, which I think it is, it may not be. But possibly a cat or something else, don't know. Looks a bit like one of those hairless cats, okay? Even got an ear there, see? So there's cats and dogs, there were bears, there were all sorts of creatures, reptiles. There's this weird thing behind there, which was really interesting. And this was one of my favourites. This is a really quite stunning carving of a head in the side of this rock here, which was part of a wall. This is near that Reptoid that I show you, just to the right of it, about 8 feet away, maybe 10. Okay, that Reptoid that looks like one from Earth that I showed you. Nose, mouth, very intricate lip detail, chin and eye with intricate detail in there. This is not that eroded because it's part of a wall structure and is protected from the wind, okay? And that's why we've got this fine detail in here, like this eye here. You can even see an iris there. You look carefully, it's there. Quite a short nose, like a lot of them had, but very, very detailed and nice lip detail there, just there, and the chin. And a very pronounced cheekbone, and the head coming back like this into the rock. Beautifully carved, and in quite good condition, okay? Really, really nice, that one. Humanoid. Not completely human, but I would say something close to it. This was interesting. We got two things here. A large ape, or proto-human here, with very large nostrils and mouth, with 2 eyes there, and what looks like possibly a helmet, looking like something from Planet of the Apes. And then we have a very large head here, but obscured here, or damaged, with another head just here behind it, just here with a nose and a mouth and a head sticking up. A bit vague, but it's there. So we've got 3, 1, 2 and 3. What are the chances of that? This one is a head shape, but the facial detail is sheared off here or been obfuscated, maybe, because it's just been flattened out. There's nothing, there's no detail there where there should be. Okay? I mean, I could be wrong, that might just be a rock, but it's shaped just like a head. This is one of the better ones, another ape, but with a very strange protruding shape on the forehead there. Eye, upturned nose, mouth with teeth detail, chin, okay. Not very clear, there's an ear there as well, just there. Not very clear, that one. It looks better from further back, like a lot of these things do. This was quite small, okay. But about human-sized, I would say, not giant like some of the others. Okay, it's about 7 or 8 inches high, possibly 5 or 6. So about human size. A lot of these things you've got to zoom back a bit and look at them like that because I've zoomed in too far. Then we have this is by the Citadel, just in front of it. And we have a very large bulbous head with a nose here and a mouth and an eye there. Not very clear, unfortunately facing away from us a bit there, so we can't see it in great detail. But you can see the eye just there. There's the nose. And there's the mouth. Okay? And this is the head coming right round with some interesting details on it. Very damaged and eroded. And is quite large, about 2 feet across. Maybe 1.5, 2 feet. Possibly a bit larger. Sol 203. Okay? Right near the Citadel. Citadel's just up here. Then we have this thing, which is another carved head. Not very clear, long way off, but quite large, over a foot tall, maybe 1.5, but a long way off, unfortunately. And in the video that I showed this, I darkened it a lot more. Here's another one. Just here, there's the eyes, there's the nose. You gotta adjust your eyes a bit. It's a bit vague, and I should have darkened it more here. But you can see when I point them out, there's an eye, there's another eye, there's the nose. And there's the mouth, and quite a nice shape to it, with hair either side, and a headband or headgear on. Okay. Now that actually looks really nice, but unfortunately this is a long, long way off. It's over 100 feet away, maybe 2. And the camera has zoomed in a bit, but not right into it, so a bit vague, unfortunately, but it's there. These are all over the place. And often you find them on these mounds, which are actually ruined structures, ruined buildings. A long-haired man. Then what's this? This is partly an optical illusion. Some people thought it was hovering, but it's not. In the lower res detailed images of this, it looks like it's hovering, but it's not. It's just perched on there. But some very interesting details in it here. Very weird. And there's a head right here of a small ape, just there. A carved head of an ape. There's the eye. There's the snout. There's the mouth. And the head comes around like this. There's the chin just there. Mouth, okay. There's the eye socket. So a very strange, what looks like a carved object, balancing on this plinth with a carved ape effigy right in front of it. And another one here, right? A little strange one there of a skull. Hang on, let's go back to that. Let's pause it. There's one there as well. There's one here. Possible one here. This whole area is absolutely littered with little carved heads and skulls and weird things like this. Some of them may be optical illusion or optical tricks, but a lot of them aren't. Okay, there's dozens of them in this area. Okay, it's absolutely littered with them. I was amazed how many there were actually when I first started looking at Jezero on the ground. This is a shot from the copter drone, Ingenuity. There's that huge thing in the background, the bunker-shaped structure, and this is a bunch of buildings in the ground. These are tracks here, and the rover has been scanning underground with ground-penetrating radar, and you can actually see when you look at the tracks, they're doing a very careful search pattern to get the overall shape of some of these buried structures. Okay. That's exactly what they're doing. Geophysics in action. Here we are, look. You can see long lines of walls here. These rocks are walls. There's another one here. There's rectangular and circular structures in the ground, and they're driving in a certain pattern around, right round these things to get an overall picture of what's underground, and they'll be able to scan the rooms and structures that are buried in these ruins. But we've never seen any of this data. They haven't shown or shared any of it with the public, which I'm quite annoyed about, because that was one thing I was really looking forward to. But they're obviously doing the search pattern. They're obviously scanning the ground. We know they are, but we're not having, or they're not letting us see any of the actual maps and data that they've got from this geophysics study of the underground structures. Okay, this is exactly why they put this on the rover. GPR. That's exactly what it's designed to do. Look underground. This is a carved fist or something similar. Okay. And in the background there was this thing which is huge. This is about a quarter of a mile away, and it's very large indeed. It's about 9 feet long, okay, with a head and a sort of coffin shape to it. But it's a really long way off, and it's quite vague, okay, on a slope in the background. Unfortunately, it's too far away, and you can just about make out what it is. And the only reason we saw it is because the camera zoomed in quite a long way, and it's a shame. Here it is. This is at least a quarter of a mile away, and I estimate it to be about 8 or 9 feet in length, possibly bigger. Okay, it's like a giant sort of either carving or coffin or some kind of effigy of a person here. Crazy, absolutely huge, that thing, right? Just a shame it was so far away. Then we have a lot of these things like gargoyles of reptiles. This is just to the right, on the right corner of the Citadel structure, and is one of the cornerstones here on top. And on a lot of these cornerstones and upper stones, we have animals carved, like reptiles and things like that. And often they have sort of snake-like features and stick out. There's the head. You can see the mouth and the eye just here. That's the mouth. That's the eye. That's the chin. It's like a dragon. Another dragon. Stylized, of course, mythical creatures, just like we have on Earth. Okay? In fact, a lot of our mythical creatures may have actually come from Mars, or at least the myths of them. If any of the Martians made it here, which I think they probably did, they probably brought a lot of these stories with them. Okay, dragons. Very interesting. Another head, not very clear this one, but there's also a weird thing behind it with these weird square parts. This is another creature, very recent one I found. This is a reptile, a bit like, perhaps like a large turtle, perhaps. There's the head, mouth, snout, two small eyes. You can even see that in the raw clip there. These are flippers either side. No shell on the back, so who knows. This was an interesting one, recent find. A carving of a little bear or pig-like creature on top of a rock, which is also probably part of a structure. This is on a ridgeline, very large, what look like fitted rocks, some of these. And often, like I said, these mark an entrance where they would have a carving of an animal just outside the main entrance of the building, okay? And like kind of gargoyles or ornamental statuary, which you would have outside your house. But this was cool because there's multiple angles of this one. You can see it from multiple angles. I've only picked a couple of them here. Here's the other angle from the back. You can see that snout sticking out. So that was a nice one. This was a cool one. This one here, I'll show you that in more detail in a minute. This one here is an upright statue, very strange. Head and shoulders. A long way off again, but you can see it in negative there and the enhanced clip here, raw clip in the middle. There was this one, very recent find. This almost looks mummified, but maybe carved, I don't know. But this has a brooch here. There's a very small nose there, mouth, lower lip, eyes either side, damaged. And then we have what looks like hair coming down, or a helmet or hat. Look carefully. Use the magnifier. Nostrils, mouth, eye, another eye here but damaged or mutated. Possible hair or something coming down the side. This is a shiny object here. So this may represent a brooch or some kind of helmet or something, or hair with some kind of hair clip or something. But maybe a carving, and it's just extremely eroded, you know. Very, very old. Here's the mummy, and it's right in the middle of a clearing. This is a recent video, so if you want to see that, I recommend this one. So if you go back to my videos from late last year in December, this is one of them, quite recent, and I go into a lot of detail with this and show it in a lot of detail. This is a long mummy, about 7 or 8 feet long, perhaps, possibly 9. It's somewhere between 6 and 9, I would say, or even 10. Very long. It's a long way from the Rover, but still looks pretty big. And is in a clearing, but with a formation of rocks and boulders around it that look like remains of a structure, like a mausoleum or something like that, or building that's been blown apart. And this is just sitting in the middle with clear sand around it, attached to this kind of plinth at the bottom here. Okay, fascinating, absolutely fascinating. And it's got details very similar to this on top, with hands and staffs and the sort of scepters and that kind of thing here. I go into a lot more detail in that, so I do recommend you go back and watch that from last year in December, okay? Right, part 2. Now we have curiosity finds from 2021. These are the wheels. Actually, this is the same wheel, rotated, so we got the same wheel showing both sides of it. And it's in pretty bad shape. It's been driving over priceless artifacts and metal objects on the ground now since 2012, since the summer of 2012, and is not in great shape. But luckily the other wheels on the Rover are in much better shape than this. This is the worst one, but it's pretty bad. But the Rover can run probably on 3 or 4 wheels rather than 6. That's why it has so many. But this is the front wheel, I think, one of the front wheels, and takes most of the shock when it hits an object on the ground, okay? But largely the Rover does manage to avoid the larger objects because it has special cameras mounted, has cams mounted underneath to spot any larger objects. It just drives around things. So it often drives in a zigzag kind of pattern through and dodging all the larger objects. But in the past, it's driven over some pretty rough metallic objects in the ground sticking out, which are parts, I think, of reinforced metal bars that are inside some of the concrete structures in Gale Crater. I'm going to show you a bit on those in a minute. But there are lots of concrete ruins in the area with metal rods embedded in them, like wire or metalwork in the actual rock. And a lot of this stuff sticks up out of the ground, and the Rover's driven over some of these and has poked holes in the actual Rover wheels. This isn't just rock damage, this is metallic object damage that's poked and punched through this material, this carbon fibre material on the wheels here, okay? That's what's happened. This looks like a boat in the distance on this ridge. Gale Crater was quite a deep lake here, and there are loads of boat wrecks and shipwrecks in the area buried in the sand, and the sand has drifted up against it. This is a long way off, about a mile away, and we've got this light coloured boat-shaped object up against this ridge with some interesting parts here, but it's a long way off, so not much detail there, but very reflective. And you can see a lot of these in the area, and sometimes we see them up close. Another head, carved head in the ground. Not very clear, this one. Sold 2993. Quite recent. This is a very large, strange statue with a very bulbous round head and a sort of flattish nose, very large eyes, and not a human effigy, I would say, with two little short arms here that look like they're broken off here. One on the right, one on the left. It's large. And there are lots of these carvings in this area, and some of them are enormous, okay, 100 feet high, some of them. Some are 60, some are 100, some are 80. It could be 30, it could be 40, who knows. This is a very interesting one, which I call the gargoyle, and it's at Montmartre. And we see this very interesting head-shaped carving sticking out of the top of it here. The Rover drove right up to this little cliff that they called Montmartre, which is a kind of ramp, and may have been part of a bridge or structure, I think. And but when we got close to it, we didn't see this from the front properly because this is quite high up. This is about 30 feet off the ground, and the Rover was right at the bottom looking up, so we couldn't actually see the detail on this very well because you've got to be at a high elevation. This was taken from much further back, but from a high elevation, and so we saw it quite well. But when we got below it, we couldn't see it because it was too high up and obscured by the rock itself, by the rest of the structure. Okay, there was this. I call it a warrior, but it may not be a warrior. This is a mummified head, burial, exposed. You can see that fairly clearly, even in the raw image here, with the mouth and the nose, bulbous eyes, a quite sort of animalistic looking nose, and a large upper lip area with teeth detail and lip detail there, and blondish or reddish hair. Sort of blondish colour. When you enhance the colour, that's the colour it goes. I didn't add that colour, okay? It just comes out that way. Very weird indeed. Lots of weird material in the area. A lot of this is just volcanic rock that's solidified in a funny way and eroded, and we've got these weird parts sticking down with some of it. Very odd, a lot of it. Interesting though. From a geological standpoint. But then we have this thing. Some people said it looked like a plant. I didn't spot this. This was spotted by... actually, I did spot this, but other people also found it and had their own take on it as well, back in July. I think this may have been a plant or a part of perhaps an aperture. This may be metal. But we've got what look like little limbs sticking out of this thing and a head on it here. And this strange thing here with a rectangular object attached to it here. Very strange. If you look at these details here, you can see what look like limbs sticking out here at the back. And a head here. Very weird indeed. Still can't quite make out what it is. Now, it could be an aperture of something that was part of a pillar, and this may be metal rebar that was inside the object, made of concrete perhaps, above this, which is now eroded and collapsed away, and this is part of the metalwork that was inside the structure. This is about 1 foot across. So there could have been a pillar attached on top of this, and this may be some of the rebar inside. This all kind of eroded and corroded. So this may be iron or steel or a mixture, some kind of alloy. Who knows? Very odd indeed. Some people said it looked like a fulgurite. Some people said it looks like a plant. Maybe. I really don't know what it is. Very interesting though. Here's that insect that I showed you earlier. This is from Sol 1501, so this is an image going right back, but I went over some of the older images last year, and we have the insect here and a very strange object here which looks like part of a box and a carved animal on the side of it there. Okay, like an animal there, like a bird, and a box that's all broken up. You can see parts of the box here. Okay, with slats coming across, and then we have a possible fossilized insect or creature there, and another one here like an insect with wings, which is what I showed you earlier. This isn't a very good close-up of it. It's quite a long shot of it, but that's what it looks like. Then we have this long building with rooms. You can see on this ridge line, this is huge. This represents about 50 feet across here, and separate rooms of what was a structure here, a large building. And this goes right down into the ground. This is one of the upper floors, but this may have gone up many floors above, although this also may have been the top, I don't know. And there's a thing that looks a bit like a machine gun sticking out the top of the side of it on the left here, in the corner, which I've also shown earlier. And you can see rooms here, one here, one here, one here, and you can see another one, little one down here, and there's another one here, another one here, and it's all buried. The sand's blown up against it and filled it in, but these are structures. You can actually see how they were built, and it's all collapsed down and broken and smashed up. Okay, very nice example of it there, one of the best ones. Then we have writing, what looks like some kind of carved or metallic corroded writing, or like a sign with letters that are a little bit similar to some of ours, like an E there and an F, okay, and an M, another one there, and it's all kind of corroded and broken up. I think this is metallic, and this may have been part of a boat, and doesn't look very good at that size. You need to go smaller, and then you can see it. You can see the font there, which is similar to Times Roman bold. Very strange, right? Look at that E. And these come up quite a lot in other things. I'll show you some more in a minute. And that's only about 2 feet across, okay? It's like a sign. This looks like a burial. This isn't a mound. You can actually see here, this is the burial mound here. This all kind of eroded away. And this was a burial. And this is a burial mask or something here. And this is part of the area where the body was buried, in this sort of sarcophagi here with walls either side of it. Okay, it's not very clear. Unfortunately, it's in black and white. So it's an exposed burial dolmen. There's a close-up. There's the head or mask, and this is one wall, the outer wall, and this is an inner separating wall here. And a lot of this is concrete as well. Then we have this weird thing here, which looks like a carving, but may not be. Maybe an optical trick, but there seems to be a head with a beard and a mouth and 2 eyes there. You can see it there. And also a very weird reptilian looking thing sticking out of the wall there, with 2 more kind of insectoid than reptilian looking, I would say. Like a mantis. Just there. Big eye there, and mouth detail here, and this is the sort of face carved onto the side of this structure, eroded structure, okay? So we've got depictions of people. animals, like cats and dogs and lions and apes and all that kind of thing. And then we have things like this. This is a giant carved human or humanoid. This was found by Terry Burnett. And this is what I called Ares, okay, the god of war, one of the gods of war anyway. And this is about 60 feet high, maybe 70, from there to there. And you can even see the block work as it was constructed, and that some of it's cracked and fallen away. It's near the base of Mount Sharp. Huge thing. Here's a close-up. You can see the block work here at the bottom. You can see the nose, long nose, eye, forehead. Interesting detail on top there. Head coming back to here with either a helmet or hat or headgear. This is another angle of it, a much closer view. And we can see here, I've highlighted it, amazing eye detail there. Eye socket there with an eye, another one there. Long nose coming down. There's the mouth with lip detail. There's an object next to it, just below, with a pipe that goes into the nostril or mouth, just here. Can't quite make it out. And it's got these weird horn shapes to it. So it's either wearing some kind of tricorn hat or something, or these are actual horns. So this may represent a sort of demon, or what we would call a demon, but what ancient people would have called a demigod, like Ares. Okay. So these look like horns here, either side. And this is on a big sort of eroded structure made of concrete and blocks. I can even see where some of the block work has fallen away here on the side. Okay, so it's damaged. This is massive. Something like 80 feet, maybe 60, maybe 90. Don't know exactly. It's very large. You can see, if you look carefully, look at the eye detail. Amazing eye detail in there. Look, there's the eye. There's the other eye. Nose comes right down. Nostril there. This is the mouth coming back. We've got this object next to it, which I've highlighted, with a pipe. So this may have had some kind of water feature or something attached to it here. Okay. This is only the top. I mean, this is massive. Absolutely massive. Huge thing. These things are, some of them at Mount Sharp are enormous. And this is, incidentally, is a part of the area I called the Royal Mile, where there are giant, huge statues of some of the leaders, previous kings and queens or whatever of the area, or Mars, or at least the capital, which I think Gale Crater was at one time. Then we have this strange object on the ground. Looks a bit like a skidoo type thing, or very strange. Has this part on the back here, metallic. Very interesting. Not very clear. Sol 1610. Recent find, but an old image. There's a metal box here, which is all corroded. You can see a lot of detail in here. This is hollow, probably made of steel or metal of some sort. That's all corroded and eroded away. You can see into it here. You can fit your hand inside there quite easily. Okay. I mean, it looks like part of a ship or a structure or something. Okay. It's a bit like some of the details you would see in a shipwreck that's been underwater for a long time. Okay. This is probably about 2 feet across. So it's a section, a box section from a boat or a structure. Probably metallic. A dead creature here, possibly with a strange thing next to it. You can see the head here. This creature is lying on its back with its legs in the air. There's a leg there, there's another one there, there's another one there, and another one here. And a small head with a little nose on it as well. Absolutely insane. All at the base of Mount Sharp. That was Sol 3151. There's this thing that looks a bit like a meerkat, but in fact, when you look at it more closely, it has a strange clip-like metal object with a loop on it just there. If I show you with a magnifier, there's the head, shoulders, and a strange clip-like, almost like a hairpin clip or something coming down the side. Who knows what that is, really? I thought it was an animal, but it probably isn't. And loads of gold material in this area as well. Then there was this, one of my favourite finds ever. Not the only cat I found. I found lots of cats. This is quite large. This is about 2 feet long, maybe 3. This is a lion, or at least a Martian equivalent of. There are the eyes. Some people say these are the eyes here, but they're not. I think these are nostrils. This is an eye. That's the other eye. These are nostrils here. And this is the mouth. And we've got a mane coming around here. Carved this is. There's one of the paws there. Well, if it's a male lion, this is the left front paw there. And we have the back leg and the butt area here with letters carved on the side of it there, like a V, a B, and a C, shaped. I'm not saying that's what they are, that's what they're shaped like, okay? Cracks down the middle, unfortunately. It seems to be joined to something here. You can see that it's joined to a plinth or something underneath, and that sort of paw is hanging over the edge, front edge of it there, which is in a sloping shape. So this was probably a building here. In fact, if you watch this video, you can see that there's a structure buried right around it. So this is attached to a wall and part of a structure that's ruined and buried. Amazing find. Just a shame the image is a bit closer and a bit clearer, but you can see what it is. It doesn't look like an earth lion. I've just put them there for comparison. But other cats have been found. Now this is right up on Mount Sharp, miles away, and you can see these terraces, which I've shown from space as well. There were loads of terraces up here, and some of them had probably plants growing on them in the distant past when there were people living up here, and they were growing crops. And they look, some of them look like paddy fields, some of them look like steppes, like you would see at Machu Picchu in Peru. Very similar to that. Okay, very interesting terracing going on up here, and ramps. Now this is also the base of Mount Sharp. Now this is behind that Ares statue I showed you a minute ago, about a mile or half a mile behind it, about a kilometre. These letters on the side of this artificial mound here, or partially artificial mound, are about 50 feet high, maybe 60. An E shape, a 5 and a Y shape, and there's more here. In fact, in recent images that we've had of this area, you can see round this a bit more, and there's another letter on the end, but we can't see it from this angle. These are huge. This thing is probably 100 feet high, or near to it, but possibly larger. So these are about 40 or 50 feet high. If this is taller, this may be 200 feet, and these may be much bigger. So who knows exactly how big they are. They're a long way off, so it's very difficult to work out, but they're massive, okay? Very interesting stuff going on. This is base of Mount Sharp again. Then we have this recent find. I went over this set of images again, Sol 529. Loads of similar things in 529. Of heads, statues, and burial remains. This is a human head. Not humanoid, actually human, I would say. It's got a human nose, human mouth, chin. Head's damaged up here, just carved. Ear is a bit low and a bit far back, but you know, within the bounds of normality, I would say. Quite a thick jawline like you would see on a human on Earth. Not the little weird jaws that some of the Martians had. A lot of the Martians I've shown and seen and shown you have got very small noses, not longer, bigger sort of human noses like this. But this has got very human features and human proportions. And it's about double the size of a human head. So this is carved. And it's right by the Dingo Gap area, Sol 529. In front of what I call the temple or temple ruins. Okay, then we have, this is part of the Citadel area again. This is Jezero crater. We've already covered this, but this is a room here. You can see a room. This is the entrance, and these are the walls, back wall and side walls here. Ruined, of course, and this is a room you can see into, all buried in sand. But this thing here is in Gale crater, and there's another example of some concrete with wire or metal bars going through it. We'll see a close-up of that in a sec. Here it is. An excellent example, I would say. Concrete with metal wire or bars going right through it here in a strange shape. And you can see them overlapping each other here, see? interwoven almost, going behind each other and in front of each other. And there's this weird sort of box-shaped part on top, which is kind of rectangular there. And then another rectangle here with what look like wires going through it. So there's lots of this in the area. Concrete, not just standard rock. This looks like some glyphs or carved writing on the side of this slab of rock here. Sol 3315, very recent this one. Can't make out what it says or anything obviously, but we got some interesting letters carved in this one here. I show it a lot more clearly in the actual video if you watch that, and that's right next to this, which I call the Game of Thrones, Mars Game of Thrones. That carved lettering I just showed you, possible glyphs, is literally only about 10 feet or 20 feet away from this throne-like seat that's carved out of what seems to be a tree stump, right? You can even see the wood grain in it. I've colorized this, but you can see the wood grain in the black and white one there. This is raw. There's the wood grain, but in color, it really does look like it's carved out of a tree stump, okay? It is now probably petrified. Absolutely stunning. The shape of it, look at the seat there, that's a seat. You can see it's carved out. That would be part of a tree stump, or at least a tree, then literally carved straight out of it. Incredible, absolutely incredible. More glyphs here, not very clear, but you can see a line of them there at the top. Like an F-shaped one there, and some weird ones like an E there, and a lot of them are shaped like our letters. There's some more here, like a Q there, another letter there, it's like a little B and a I maybe. Now, they don't obviously mean the same thing as ours, but they would have had lots of similar shapes. We have many languages on Earth, and there are recurring shapes in a lot of these languages on Earth, which are very different from each other and have different meanings, but they are similar. I would expect the same on Mars. There were humans there as well as other types, and they probably would have got to a similar point when it came to language and shapes of letters, just for ease of use. And this is a very recent find. This looks like metal wreckage that's all eroded away, and it's not far from that lettering I showed you. It looked like a sign, like a metal sign. Very interesting how it's all cracked and eroded. So there's lots of metal wreckage in the area, and some of this is responsible for damaging the Rover wheels. This looks like a carved effigy of some kind of person here. Not very clear, but you can see here on the right one, which is enhanced more. That's raw. This is enhanced more. We have a Skeletor-like face with a big ear sticking out and a helmet there and a body. Not very clear this one, and maybe partly an optical illusion, but you can see, when you brighten it up, you can see that skull-like face here and the ear and the body coming down. Okay, so this is what I've called a human plaque of a face here carved into the rock, and you can see different parts of what looks like concrete. It's all torn up, okay, and this is carved into the front of it. This letter, or letter A-shaped glyph, is in fact from Jezero crater, not Gale crater like this is, and I didn't spot that either. It goes into detail in the video who found that as well. Really nice looking carved letters in this rock here. So that was interesting. This isn't very clear, this one, and it's extremely eroded and broken up, but it's very close to this one. Now this was right up by the Rover, and it's about 20 inches high, maybe 18 or 16, and you can clearly see mouth, a nose, quite a flat nose, a large eye, and a helmet coming round with face guard and nose guard coming down to here, cheek guard coming down to here, with these different parts. And I do go into quite some detail in this video and break it down for you and draw around it and show all the different parts. It's even got sort of design in the helmet at the top here, just here, and you can see the actual nose guard coming round and then joins the cheek guard that comes down to here, and the mouth, lower lip there. There is some eye detail there, although not very clear. Okay, unfortunately in heavy shadow, but if you brighten it up, it doesn't come out all that information. And there's the raw clip, you can see it all there. So that was it. So that isn't all the things I found this past year in 2021. It's just the majority of the best clips that I've got. There are loads of other things that I haven't shown you, loads and loads. I couldn't possibly fit them all into one video. There are dozens and dozens of similar things, and a lot of the things in Jezero crater from the new rover match some of the things we've seen and I've shown in Gale crater, which is 2,300 miles away. Not only are a lot of these things the same size, we're seeing similar species and remains on the ground, things like apes and animals like carvings of dogs and cats and that kind of thing in both areas, and a lot of these things match up, okay? And we see a similar building style, although in Gale crater, where this throne-shaped chair is, there's a lot more concrete work, right? With metal rebar coming through it and sticking out of it, and wires sticking out of it and stuff, with framework. Whereas in Jezero, I would say it's a lower status and possibly not as advanced, because most of the stonework like this is crude kind of dry stone wall style, but with mortar that would have stuck it together, which is now eroded away, like this doorway here and wall here. And like this Citadel structure, they seem to have cut the rock very roughly, or shaped it roughly and placed it on top of each other and had mortar sticking it together. Whereas in Gale, especially at the base of Mount Sharp, we're seeing a lot of reinforced concrete, which means that this may have been a later development, okay? The concrete and structures built artificially rather than just using local stone and quarrying local rock and just roughly shaping it and putting it together. So we're seeing a different level of construction, slightly different style, and perhaps this means that the Gale was inhabited for a lot longer and the people there became more advanced than in Jezero. Either that, or the rover just happens to have landed by a much older town area that we're in now, and we may later on see much more advanced stonework and architecture as we go through the mission in coming months and years, okay? So thanks for watching, everybody. That was a long one. I'm going to have to stop now because my voice is about to go. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. If you're a new subscriber, please check out my playlists, and also if you're interested in finding these sort of things, you can follow all the links. If you go back through my videos, they all have links below to the gigapan, huge gigapans, and the original images from NASA, so these can all be verified. There are lots of bogus channels out there, hoax channels, who are posting complete garbage and do not provide any links for their material. If you do not see any links, or if you ask for links and they do not give them to you, they are probably faking it, okay? So beware, there are quite a few bogus channels out there. There are also some good channels. There's a few friends of mine that do this as well. There's 3 or 4 channels that are doing this, and they readily give the links in the description to the material they're showing you, so you can check it up. You can check it out and you can verify it. If they do not have links, they may well be fake, okay? So bear that in mind. Thanks for watching. I will see you soon.